Hey guys, Barry Maglidity here, back for another episode of the Comeback Game podcast. Today, I'm pretty excited to be joined by Dana Derricks. Mate, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Mate, I'm fantastic. For the people watching and listening today, where are you calling in from?
I am from all the way over in Wisconsin in the United States.
Wisconsin. And what time is it there today, mate?
It is 3 p.m.
Excellent. So for the guys that are watching or listening and maybe haven't come across you thus far, tell us a little bit about you.
All right. So, man, where do I start? So I've done some cool stuff. I've authored 13 books, including one that I know that you have had a chance to dive into, the Dream Hunter book, which is probably one of the arguably best strategies you could ever employ in your business, which I'd love to, we're going to chat about, I know, in a second here. Also, done a lot of cool stuff, including being one of the premier goat farmers in the world. That is a goat screaming, by the way. That's the sound you just heard. We do a lot of fun stuff over here.
So, mate, tell me, you're known to not only be a goat farmer, but obviously a phenomenal copywriter. What came first, goat farming or copywriting?
Man, that's like asking chicken or the egg. Actually, funny enough, copywriting came first, and that funded the goat farming. Wow. So, yeah, and that's something.
And how long ago was that? Like, when did you first get into copywriting?
Yeah, so it was going on a decade now. I was in college, and I was dead broke, and I went to a restaurant after class to go eat, and I swiped my card and it got declined, and I decided I can't live like this anymore. So the next day I went right to Barnes and Noble, which is a bookstore, and I literally physically filled up a cart full of books, because I got a $500 credit card from MasterCard. Thank you so much. And filled it with books in the business section. I got to figure this out. So the second book I ever read was a book by a guy named Dan Kennedy, and totally changed my life. About a third of the way in, I realized, like, that's what I am. I'm what he is, a copywriter.
Yeah, direct response copywriter. And where did it all start? Like, obviously, down and out, not much cash, got a $5 credit card, bought a bunch of books. Where did you take it from there? Like, you read the book from Dan Kennedy, who's a legend. Where did you take it from there? Like, how did you get from there to where you are now? And we'll touch on a bit where you are actually at now. But what was the moves that you took from obviously reading the book to implementing a cash making machine?
Totally. So it started with like just trying to make it, and so I was always like up and down, up and down, up and down. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I did go to school, got a degree. I can't remember what it was in, but I got the degree, and I never had a job, a job. So I always had this like up and down, like I do a project, makes money for the month, and then I'd like spend it, or like the next month would come and here we go again, I'm at zero. So I took sort of the knowledge from reading Dan's book and many more over the course of 6 months, and the first thing I did was I took what I was already doing and I just raised the price. So I literally 2x the price, and then I 5x, 10x, 100x the price of it. So that was like the first thing I did, was I understood how valuable the thing that I was selling actually was and the results that it actually produced. And that part of my problem was that I was undercharging for my thing. So that was a slow and gradual sort of evolution. And then from there, it turned into like just solving the next problem. So my problem that I had when I started was, I didn't have sustainable income. It was really up and down. But then I solved that problem, and I had a ton of clients and a ton of work, and I became very like cash rich, but money poor, right? So all of a sudden I'm like, I can't even go out for a movie because like it's too expensive. I'm weighing out the opportunity cost of that. So then it turned into, okay, how do I make this thing not only produce a lot of money, but also make it so I can live a good lifestyle? So then I had to, take my service that I was trading time for dollars for, and I put that into a scalable package, which for me was a book. And that's where the whole high ticket book thing where I sell books for hundreds or thousands per copy and the rest of the world sells them for $20. Reason is because I took my $10,000 service that I was selling and I'm like, I put this in a book. I'm not selling that for $20. Are you kidding me? So I made that really super scalable and use this thing called the Dream 100 to sell it and leverage. And fast forward nearly a decade now, and I've gotten kind of a lot of the pieces put together, and I can kind of do both now, which is really fun.
Yeah. Do you think that when you look back over the last decade, do you think that the biggest shift came about from the mindset more than necessarily back then the strategy you were using?
Oh man, with caution, I say yes. So the reason I say with caution is because like mindset isn't the only thing, but it is like, it's like your compass kind of. So like you can get in a car and you can drive around as fast as you want or 24/7. But if your GPS is set to the wrong location, like, it doesn't matter. Right.
Yeah.
So I guess for me, like, instead of the like woo-woo mindset people, it's more like I adopted the mindset that I'm in charge of solving my own problems, taking ownership over my situation and get myself out of this situation if I don't want to live this way anymore. And that was kind of adopting that like harsh reality by swiping my card and getting declined and then driving home hungry. That was kind of where it started. But yes, I would say mindset is going to win over strategy probably every time.
Yeah. And if you look back over the last 10 years, what was one of the biggest challenges that you've had to kind of face and overcome? Obviously, 10 years ago, there was a cash shortage, which is often the way a lot of entrepreneurs start, is taking that stand. It's a hero's journey, right? It's like taking the stand and realizing that there's a new reality that they need to create for themselves. So what do you think has been one of the biggest challenges over the past 10 years that you've had to solve? I love that question.
So this is just an example, like I'll give you an example of a problem, but the actual lesson here and my actual answer is like how I went about solving that problem. So one thing I'd said earlier, but it's really important to understand for everybody out there, especially if you are starting out or you're not where you want to be, like problems don't go away. They just change, right? Like case in point, this year I bought a brand new SUV for the first time in my life. Like I hate the thought of splurging on like something like that. Many problems went away when I did that. Like I don't have to worry about it breaking down. It's safe for my family. But now a new problem emerges. I can't park next to a guy at the grocery store because they're going to door ding it, right? Like it's a great problem. It's the best problem ever, but it's still a problem.
Yeah.
So what I didn't realize was I thought that just making a bunch of money, all my problems go away, but they didn't. It just became new problems. So here's a new problem that all you out there, I hope you don't have, but I lived it. So when I was transitioning from doing my service, which was like the one-to-one trading time for dollars, I was miserably wealthy, to bundling it into a book and selling that book for hundreds or thousands per copy. I did this thing called the Dream 100, and I ran a promotion with a Dream 100 partner. They sent a bunch of people to my book to go buy it, and we sold $206,000 in that promotion, and that was more than I had made like almost a whole year prior, working a lot. And I thought it was the best thing ever, and so I shipped out all the books. I'm like, this is, man, I'm winning at life right now. Like I'm about to win, and then I just kind of noticed that like money wasn't hitting my bank account. I'm like, that's interesting. What's going on with this? Never had that happen before. And long story short, I broke my merchant account. So you can't go from like making like, hundreds or, thousands of dollars on a daily basis to then all of a sudden, $206,000 spike. Like they don't like it. So what ended up happening was the merchant was a nightmare. They held all the funds and then they refunded them. They wouldn't even process them. So I had already sent the books out and all these people were waiting for their books and all this money in the line. And I've come to realize though now that just because you have a bunch of money doesn't mean that all your problems go away. It's just going to change.
How did you overcome that challenge. Like you'd imagine you feel like you're struggling, right? You've got an JV partner to get it in the bag, launched your books, put them in the mail, thinking, woo, got a couple $100,000 in the bank, and then nothing.
Well, it wasn't easy. It really wasn't. And like practical, like actual here, like it's almost like a process. Like I'm not overly familiar with the grieving process, but I would imagine it was something like that, where it starts with like shock and denial, and then like anger, and then like, oh my gosh, sorrow. And then, so like, it literally like was a process to deal with all of it. And if it wasn't for like the fate of very shortly after that, I got to go see Tony Robbins live, and he started talking about the threshold of power, which for those of you that are familiar with that, it's basically you have like, imagine like, like you're rubbing sandpaper on your hand. You do a little bit every day and your hand just becomes calloused, and it becomes like impossible to like break through those calluses. Like that's your threshold of power. So you can think about like that for me is still, hopefully, knock on wood, is the worst thing that's happened to me in my business. Mm-hmm. So anything now, any day of the week that ever happens, I just compare it to that, and it's never as bad. And if it'll ever be worse, I'll just think, awesome, my threshold just reset, right? So I just think back to that nightmare, and I think, Donnie that wants a refund is not so bad, because that's not as bad as that problem, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a great strategy. Great strategy. So tell me, what do you think are your motivators now to succeed in business?
What motivates me now?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Oh, this is such a good lesson too. Man, you have the best questions, by the way. These are awesome. Okay. So yeah, I used to think I wanted to be a billionaire. Like that was my thing. I'm gonna be the next billionaire and blah, blah, blah. And now I've come to realize how miserable that must be. Because if you look at billionaires, like maybe not all of them, but most of them, like they don't have friends. They're not doing fun stuff. They're living very straight and narrow. Like Warren Buffett literally like does the same thing every day, all day. He goes to McDonald's in the morning, and then he goes and he works, and he drinks like 6 cherry Cokes, and then he goes home. That's it. And he reads a newspaper. That's it. Like he will not deviate from that. And I think to myself, like, I need more excitement in my life. And I'd rather be, geez, if I'm nothing more than a millionaire that has fun along the way, that's okay with me. So what motivates me now is not what did when I started the pursuit of like this measuring stick of being a billionaire. Now it's more like, how much impact can I make while still enjoying everything that I'm doing? Mm-hmm. And then, doubling down now, obviously having a family and all that is obviously more along the lines of that. But at the end of the day, I think it's just getting real with what you actually want, and then being at peace with whatever you decide.
Mm-hmm. We see that a lot with clients that come in with a hunger to hit the financial freedom, make more money. It's like they almost go through the midlife crisis once they get there. Yeah. Because they've had a pursuit, their whole life in some degree to be wealthy or to have the experience of what they believe and what would give them, only to find it when they get didn't quite feel the way that they thought it would feel. And it's then almost like we have to reprogram or change the way that we identify with ourselves and identify with life in order to then be able to actually enjoy having that money.
Amen. Seen that firsthand.
Yeah. If you were able to go back to an early version of you and instill upon them one piece of advice, what do you think that would be?
Wow. Oh, man. So okay, that's great. So as an entrepreneur, I would say and this is not the best advice for somebody that doesn't have, like I can tell you are like me, and probably most of you listening out there, you're like us, where like we don't have an off switch, right? Like the world is like one big blur. Like when I leave my office, I drive down the road and I see advertising billboards and I start thinking about business again, right? Like it's just odd. So this is for us. This message is not for those that have an on and an off switch and leave their work at 4 p.m. or whatever like this. So what I would tell my younger self is that it's okay if you don't finish your daily checklist. Like if you don't get done everything you want in this day, there's tomorrow. Like you can continue where you left off starting tomorrow. It's imagine like a kid, right? That, gets a brand new video game and they will literally stay up all night to try and beat that game. Literally, like they won't stop. And it's like telling that kid like, hey, Donnie, relax, get a couple hours of sleep, maybe say hi to your dog, feed your dog, maybe eat something, take a shower, and then you can continue tomorrow morning fresh and like
stupid.
Yeah, like I'm sure you can probably relate to that.
Right, totally. It's just and what is that innate drive that we have? Is that entrepreneur? Is it ADD? Like, what is that drive that we have that keeps us wanting to pursue the never-ending?
I wondered that for a long time, and I actually have a pretty good answer for that. Have you heard of a guy named Alex Charfen?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's got a theory on this that I actually I think it's the best theory I've heard. So we have this on switch, right, that doesn't turn off, and we can't take vacations without right. So so he says that we are this thing called an evolutionary hunter, and so if for those that are unfamiliar, like go watch Charfen's presentation on this. It's really good. So what that means is back when we were like living in caves in like primitive, we had to have all sorts of different types of people. We were all wired differently. So some people were wired to reproduce, like to have children and take care of children. I have a kid, but like I couldn't be a stay-at-home dad. Like I couldn't do it. I would do it for a while and it would be like, I couldn't. Like I'm not wired for that. Yeah. And then there were some people though that were like the hunters and gatherers and went out and hunted and like took risks and were always on the move to try and make sure that everybody in the tribe has food. That's us. Those entrepreneurs that are always like after the next thing, like we're okay to take a risk. We like need to provide and we need to we have this unscratchable itch. To me, that's us.
Yeah. And for any of you guys that are watching this, go to thegamechangers.com.au /the comeback game and check out another episode we recorded with Alex where he dives into the evolution of the hunter and how to build massive momentum in business. Such a good guy with some incredible insights into the way that we are wired entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Tell me how to get into these. Like I've seen some crazy things done where you've like taken goats to live events. Certainly they're part of most of your daily content. How did you get into goat farming?
Yeah, oh man, $1 million question. So I grew up on a dairy farm. We had pretty much every animal except goats, ironically, growing up. And so I'm like a 12th generation farmer. Like you can literally trace it back all the way as far as you can in lineage. And so after I full disclosure, I hated it as a kid. Like at the time, hated farm work. Thought it was the dumbest thing ever. Like when the internet came around, I'm like, okay, I could go throw hay bales for an hour and make $20 and hate every second of it. Or I can go on the internet, find something to sell on eBay, make $20 in 10 minutes inside. That's pretty easy. So I completely hated it because it's not the grass is greener thing, right? Hated it as a kid. That like literally is the reason I became an internet entrepreneur because I hated the physical hard work of farming. And then I left to go to college and did my entrepreneur thing, bought a house in the country and realized that I kind of missed it. And as fate would have it, I had a goat pen because the previous owners had goats that they took with them. And the ragweed was 4 feet high. And I was faced with a dilemma. Do I go and chop that ragweed down by hand, an acre's worth, or do I go get some goats? And I think I made the right decision, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And now when you look at it in terms of working with goats and the entrepreneur business, copywriting thing, how do you separate your time between the two?
Oh, man. You'd be surprised at how much time those goats require. What I've come to realize, though, is like, man, in a world. So I was at an event where Gary Vee was speaking, and someone asked him, like, Gary, like, this is back like a couple of years ago when, like, before videos were so saturated, they were just starting to get saturated. They're like, Gary, how can I stand out in like such a crowded, why do I even want to do a video? And like everyone's doing videos. And he's very diplomatically said, well, all you got to do is just be better. Every market on earth, how do you win in it? You just are better. Like if there's 6 gyms in your town and you're one of the 6, how do you survive? You are better than a few of the 5, hopefully all of the 5. So with that being said, like I didn't think it'd take the life that it has, but I'm happy that it has, because I tell you, dude, every time someone sees a goat, whether it's a video or what, they think of me. That's priceless, right?
Yeah, it's definitely elevated brand for sure.
And it's authentic, so I'll take it.
So, mate, what I'd love to do now is tell you about the Dream 100. So, episode 1, actually, the Comeback Game podcast, we had a very good friend, Dana Holmes, on the show that you guys recently went to an event together. And from my understanding, your father, Chet, was one of the original creators of the Dream 100. And I'd love to have you show you guys out there watching today. Yeah, that was machine. Yeah. Share with the guys out there, what is the Dream 100 strategy and why does it work so crazy well?
Yeah, so I give all credit to Chet Holmes, who originally invented the Dream 100 strategy. I like to think that I've taken what he created and I have given it just a ton more time, attention, and resources to grow and develop it into this crazy big thing. So really, if you're unfamiliar with what the Dream 100 is, The Ultimate Sales Machine, Chet's book, is a great resource. I believe it's chapter 6 and 7. He talks about it. And what I've kind of done is evolved it. So I'll start there. So there's actually, when Chet invented it, he basically created a list of 100 ideal dream clients that he wanted to sell his product to. And he relentlessly pursued them. And because of math, not magic, he ended up making deals with many of the 100 on his list. Not all of them, but many of them. And it was well worth all the time, effort, energy, resources he spent to do that. So that's where Chet left it. And he gave a chapter or 2 in that book. And for me, it was like, I resonated so much. It was such a light bulb moment for me that it just wasn't enough. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need more. And there just wasn't. Mm-hmm. So I've taken that sort of strategy and I've honed in on it. I've like channeled my like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this my whole life type of thing. And now I've identified there's actually 4 types of Dream 100. Ready for this? Mm-hmm. So we have Chet style, which is 1-to-1, where you're going after your end target. Okay. So for lots of people, that's not practical, because it would be practical if you're selling a higher ticket type thing. So Chet sold advertising contracts, large contracts. It made sense. Not everybody has larger items. So that's 1-to-1. Then we have 1-to-many, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, a guy named Russell Brunson, and how good he is at this. So instead of going after your end target, because Russell has I call him the master of this. He has a product that is hundreds of dollars, not thousands or tens of thousands. So he goes after folks that already have created groups of your dream potential customers. And he then befriends them, and then he creates valuable relationship with them. And then a percentage of them will promote his thing or prescribe his thing. So that's type 2, 1-to-many Dream 100. And that is actually kind of what's happening right now. If for those of you that are like picking up on this. Then we have type 3. Type 3 is what I call turbocharged dream hunting. So this is also not applicable for everybody, but it will be for some. So if you have, and a great example of this is finding companies or organizations that have lots of people that want your thing, that need your thing. And then you can, what I call, you shake a hand and you can sell thousands or tens of thousands of units of your thing. So an example, let's say that you had a company that sells uniforms, right? You could literally find a like let's say an airline, right? That's looking for uniforms. You could shake one hand, create a dream on a list of all the airline, like different brands of airlines. And then you shake one of the hands and they carry all your uniforms for all their employees. Bam. That's thousands or tens of thousands of uniforms you just sold with one shake of the hand. So that's turbocharge. Sorry, I'm going all in on this.
This is great.
Last one, type 4. This is what I call fast forward dream unheard. So this is really what's happening right now. What, Barry, you've done a wonderful job of. And that is going straight to the horse's mouth. So if you want to know all things Dream 100 and you want to get to the bottom of like Dream 100, you go straight to Dana, right? Like you find the person that is the leading expert on it and you go straight to them and you get it from them. Maybe you have to dump money at them. Maybe you have to get them on your podcast. What do you got to do? You just go straight to them. That's the 4 types of Dream 100.
Yeah. And what I like most is that often the Dream 100 strategy doesn't actually require any cost of advertising. No marketing. It's
the only form of warm and or hot, unlimited traffic, 100% free. You only pay when it converts.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I like what you shared before too, around people prescribing Russell's, software to their members. And for the guys that haven't made the connection out there and listen to this, it's like, when we go to the doctor, we're sick. We go to the doctor because they're an expert in things health, apparently. And they prescribe us with something, and often we never second guess that. We take that prescription, we go to the pharmacy, we hand over our money. Like, do you want home brand, or do you want normal brand? You pay the money and you take a pill. You want to find somebody that has the ability to prescribe your product in some way. Hey, you've got this issue around generating clients, warm clients, go and see them. Implement his Dream 100 strategy, get a flood of new clients. And it's very different generating traffic on Facebook for an ebook. Hey, download my ebook and let us give you this. Try to sign up as a client.
Yeah, so what you just said is the perfect example. And I'll even double down on that. So here in America, obviously we have a problem with our healthcare, which everybody makes fun of us for, which you guys should make fun of us. And so it's like, I thought I like really your example, like I broke this down once because I was so in shock. Like, how can, like, not getting political, but just commonsensically saying like medications like are not necessarily good. Like if you don't need it, like don't take it, right? So I'm like, how can these companies, like pharmaceutical companies, sell something that's terrible for you and that costs you hundreds or thousands of dollars and it costs them almost nothing? Like that's the world's biggest ripoff ever, like if there is one. And it's exactly how you just described it. They don't sell it. They have your friendly doctor prescribe it because they could never sell that to us directly. We would always say no, like, no, I'm not paying that for that. What does it do? But we don't question it. So even worse in that scenario is when we get to the pharmacy, we walk past like 17 different options that we could buy over the counter. Like if my knee hurts, well, I could buy a knee brace. I could buy a knee gel. I could buy, an over-the-counter pain med. Like I could buy all these other things that probably would solve it, but we don't. Why? Because the doctor told us not to. He told us to do that. So it's the same exact thing. Like you can fight with Facebook ads and stuff and go after cold people who don't know you, or you can go find people that will prescribe you and people that already know, like, and trust them.
Yeah.
You can leverage that.
Yeah. Can you just, for the guys out there, I'd love you to just share, like, have you got a couple of examples of how you or how maybe your clients have used the Dream 100 strategy to grow their business?
Oh man, yeah. Countless examples. So I'll break down one of my most highly sought after that I usually only break down in my mastermind, but I can give you a little bit of it here. That's how I went from stranger to literally like pretty much you name it. And Russell Brunson and I, my number one target on my Dream Hunter list, have pretty much done together. I can give you the short version if that's helpful.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So what I call the golden rule of dream hunting, this isn't practical for everybody, but it's very important, is if you have a number 1 or 2 or 3 on your list, like your highest level targets, right? The golden rule is to consume all their stuff, AKA best case scenario is buy all their stuff. So if you're able to, and I know that's not possible for everybody, but if you really want to get in front of somebody, buy all of their stuff, including all their masterminds, whatever they have, like as much as you can afford. So this is what I did. I read Chet's chapter and like years ago, and I wrote Russell's name on my whiteboard in my apartment, and I erased it. And I was like, there's no way that guy will ever pay attention to me. And then I was like, whatever. I wrote it back up, kind of like a little bit in the corner. And so I started consuming all of his stuff. At that that instant, I couldn't join his mastermind. I couldn't afford that. So I consumed as much as I could. I read his books, listened to his podcast, like watched his video, followed him, like consumed everything that I could. And then fast forward a few months, and I started having success from his stuff. And so, right? Weird, right? And so I started like kind of showcasing that success in his community, as well as helping others in his community and just serving. So now all of a sudden I'm kind of on his radar a little bit. And then I decide to, you know what? I've made enough money from this guy. I've done well enough that I'm going to start dream hunting him for real. So I bought into his mastermind. At the time it was $25K. I sent a one-way wire on a trip to Boise, Idaho. And that was like really scary. But I got his attention even more, right? So everybody, you don't have to do that, but if you can, it way fast forwards it. So once I got his attention because becoming a star student, I have bought and consumed all the stuff that I could. And now I'm closer to him. Actually got him to write the foreword of my book, the Dream Hunter book, which was awesome. And then, because it's a value exchange, you just keep upping the ante on the value every time. I went out to his office and did a 2-day secret copywriting project with him. And it was awesome. I got to meet his kids, go to his house. It was like the coolest thing. And then fast forward even a little bit longer, and I got to go speak at his event, Funnel Hacking Live, in front of thousands of awesome entrepreneurs. And then fast forward even more, he came out to my event, Dream Hunter Con, and spoke in front of my tribe of entrepreneurs and my people. And fast forward even further, we're still in value exchanges, and I can literally Vox him and he'll Vox me back in 2 minutes. That's how close we are. And I never thought that was possible when I put his name on that whiteboard years ago. But it all comes back to a few of the key lessons there is just consume all their stuff, be a star student, and they'll want to put you in front of their audience, and they'll have to take notice.
Yeah. And to me, it really feels like you're leading value as well. You're leading to give rather than leading to get.
Yes. The best analogy of that. And it's unconditional giving too. I'm so glad you brought that up, because there's too many people out there who don't read my book and they try to do this thing and they just have a condition set where if I send you a package, I expect you to promote me, kind of thing. It's like, no, hold on. Like that is the best example. It's in dating, right? Like, it's like the guy taking the gal out for dinner, and all of a sudden, like, she kind of can tell what he wants, right? And why he's doing that. Because at the end of the night, he wants something and he expects something, and it just cheapens the whole thing. And all of a sudden it's like, hold on here. Who are you really? And like, I don't like it just ruins the dynamic, and it's just not the way to do it.
Yeah. And what I'd say too, like, if there's people out there watching, listening to this, that maybe quite getting the results they think they should through paid advertising and through their current streams of lead generation, I highly recommend check out the Dream 100, because I know that a lot of people wouldn't actually spend the time to implement it. They wouldn't spend the time to let alone read it and learn it and go through the process, because Russell Brunson, like, that was a long-term play for you. And I know that Chet Holmes' story, I think it was 18 months it took him to land Tony Robbins as a client. And from then on out, Tony Robbins, and Chet did over, I think it was $50 million worth of business. So it's not a short-term get rich quick overnight success play. However, if you're willing to put the work in, it can reward you crazy epic results in relationships as well. And lastly on that is that it might take you 6 months, 12 months, 3 months, whatever, to deploy it and to get it working. But once it is working, it will continue to work and work and work and work and work without having to go in and optimize ads every day and spend more money on paid advertising.
Amen. I mean, case in point, look at your podcast. Look at how fast and how big that's grown.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
We ran a very similar strategy with Dream 100.
Absolutely. And you do an amazing job of it. And the cool thing is, we just got actually done with Dream 100 Con last week. So this is all really fresh and cool still. And one of the coolest things I had one of my guest presenters talk about was their podcast strategy and how they never take a step backwards too. So like once you get to a certain level, right? Like once you book this guest, like if they're B level, A level, C level, whatever, like you can go get the next one now because that person's been on. And you did a fantastic job of getting me here because of, you know, some of the other people you've had. And with that being said, like once you land the Tony Robbins, like that unlocks the key to then go and get everybody else because Tony's in. So yeah, it is long term, but it's so worth it because look at what Barry's been able to do.
Yeah, it's interesting because we had Russell Brunson released we first launched about 9 or 10 months ago, and you know, we reached out with no response, and we thought, well, who's the first person we can target to him, and eventually wear him down to where he's ready. And so, you know, Amanda Holmes was one of the very first guests that I had on, a good friend of mine now. And then, you know, you keep leveraging those relationships and you leverage the networks. And what you start to realize is the world is actually not that big, and that you're only ever at any one point in time 1 or 2 moves away from, you know, that next move, that bigger move, or that as you said, that B or that A grade level guest. But it does take time, it does take consistency, and it does take you know, patience and discipline as well.
Amen. And that's why we call it a Dream 100, not a Dream 10, because the reality is like, you're not going to land all 100. You just can't. It doesn't work that way. But if you can land one good one out of those 100, it's all worth it. And that's what's so exciting about the Dream 100.
Yeah. So for the guys and girls that are listening and watching this today, where can I get access to the Dream 100 and check you out a bit more?
Yeah, so the best place to start is the Dream 100 book. And it's the same exact book I actually sold 9 copies of for $2,000 a copy when I first came out with it. So same exact book, literally. And I'm not going to charge you $2,000 a copy unless you want to pay that. I'd gladly take it. But I'll actually give you guys a really, really awesome deal on that. And you can go to dream100book.com for that deal. And by page, I think 21 is when people's brains start exploding. So you're going to enjoy it.
Yeah, awesome. So before we wrap it up, mate, what's the best advice you've ever been given by a mentor or by a friend, family, someone in your life? What's the best single piece of advice you've ever been given?
Oh, man.
You can have 3. I'll give you 3.
3? Okay. Yeah. I've done a lot of these, and I got to tell you, your questions are up there with the best I've ever had. So bravo to you.
Thank you.
Why don't we have 3. I like to do, as much as I can, I like to do 3. I think there's 3 core like pieces everyone should focus on. That's business, obviously, but also you personally, and also relationships. Yeah. I'm going to give one of each, if that's cool. We're going to do 3.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay. So business-wise, the best piece of advice I would say is to plant your flag. Okay. This is literally like, would have fast forwarded me 10 years. So I planted my flag as a Dream 100 guy. I wish I would have done that years ago. Russell planted his flag as a funnel guy. Same story. He would have done that years ago. Don't try to be everything for everybody. Like, be okay with saying no and choose wisely, and then don't ever look back. Be something. Personally, I think it's really important to be selfish, right? So again, like I said earlier, talking to entrepreneurs, not to the rest of society. As an entrepreneur, be selfish personally, okay? Because this is what tends to happen is like we sacrifice our personal health and well-being to go get a bunch of wealth. And I think this was actually, I can't remember if it was the Dalai Lama or something, said everybody in our culture sacrifices their health to get a bunch of wealth. And then at the end of their life, they go pay all that wealth off to try and get their health back. And I'm like, I should get in on that before that happens. So be selfish. Like literally tell your people no, I have to work out every day or I will have a mental breakdown. Because it's true. Like if we all have our thing. So be selfish. And then relationally, it's like, look at it as like gauges, like in a car. So like your speedometer can be going awesome. You're going 70, you're making it quite a ways. Like, let's say that's your money, your bank account, but then your relational gauge, your fuel is at empty. You're not going to keep going at that pace much longer. So all the gauges need to be balanced, and relational is sometimes, just like personal, is sometimes thrown kind of to the wayside. So just make sure those gauges are balanced. You'll do awesome.
Such great advice. So, plant your flag early as an entrepreneur, be clear on what you're going to stand for, be selfish, make sure that you look after you first and foremost, your health, your sense of well-being, and then relationally make sure that there's balance, and then make sure that you take time to stick your head up for every now and again, and make sure that you're investing the time, investing the love, investing the care into those around you as well. Dana, mate, it's been such an incredible time chatting with you. So grateful that we got you on the show. It was nearly a year in the making, but we got here.
So awesome. Hey, thank you so much. It was seriously an honor. You've got a great show. Happy to be a part of it. You're an awesome dude. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks, mate.